So politics can feel very complicated and overwhelming, and that's actually the reason why I have avoided it for so long. And look, I'm not even going to pretend that I know much about politics, okay? In fact, having watched a lot of these public figures being so outspoken and knowledgeable and well versed in politics have made me realize that I know very little about it. So I'm not even going to try to be opinionated about having big opinions about it, or even making analysis about it. What I'm gonna do in this video is just to share with you my journey and how I was very apathetic about politics and what is changing right now. And I just want to share with you some of the reasons why I was quite ignorant about politics and what are the things that are changing it. So there are a few reasons why I was very apathetic about politics, and the first reason is my own personal beliefs. So when I was a teenager, when I was growing up, I was very much into self-development. I was a junkie. I would read a lot of books. I would watch a lot of videos on YouTube. At the time, there weren't that many videos on YouTube, but there were enough for me to watch. And the theme that kept on coming up in these videos is that stop watching the news, just focus on growing yourself as a person. And to me that really made sense. It's like I need to focus my energy on the things that I can control, instead of being angry on things that I have zero control over. And I like that, and it completely made sense to me. Hey, tough. Hey. Sorry. And also, like, at the time, I didn't really understand anything about politics anyway, so I thought like it was a weakness. So why would I spend the energy on it if I wasn't interested and if I was not knowledgeable about it, and it's not going to make any difference? Sorry, this is very distracting. And also, because I carried that belief so strongly, I started noticing patterns in my real life as well. Because the thing is, your belief really shaped your reality, right? Because it determines on what you focus on in real life. So I started seeing a lot of people, not quite a handful of people that I know personally, that are very aware of politics, but they were living lives that were just not very impressive. They weren't doing very well in life. Like they would wake up, they would watch the news, they would be angry about their government in their countries, and then they would go about their day that is very mundane and normal. And I did not find that to be very inspiring. And seeing more of these in my real life made me even more convinced that I don't want to go this route. I feel like if I don't watch news about politics, I would like retain my like positive energy vibe or whatever, and I can actually put more energy on improving myself as a person. So yeah, seeing these people who are very aware and very angry in politics, living lives that I did not aspire to, made me turn a blind eye even more. And of course, all of these things were just my personal experience. They were just like anecdotal evidences. But what it did was just, it strengthened my belief even more that politics is not even going to make a difference in my life. And especially with Indonesian politics, whenever I go on the news, there's always like the same kind of headline, the same kind of scandal, the same kind of story. And I thought like, what's the difference if I were to care about it and not? And reason number 2 is the language barrier. So if you've been watching me for a while, you probably know that even though Bahasa Indonesia is my native language, English is my dominant one, which means that I can actually talk about more topics in English than in Bahasa Indonesia, especially complex topics such as politics. And in Bahasa Indonesia, I just stick to daily, simple conversations. So you can imagine that whenever I try to read and watch political news in Bahasa Indonesia, half the time I don't even understand what's going on. I would end up even more confused. So the more I try, the more confused I get. So eventually I just stop trying, all these acronyms and terms that is just confusing, like MPR, DPR, Kapolri, UU, MA. MA tuh apa? Like Master of Arts, like mie ayam, or just like, and then I looked it up and it means Majelis Agung. And even when I looked it up what it stands for, I still don't understand what Majelis Agung is. And then I would have to look it up in English, Supreme Court. That's when I get the concept. So this is because, Even though I don't have a background in politics, the time that I actually learn and read about politics, it would be in English. So I learned the concept directly in English without knowing what the Indonesian translation would be. So yeah, I don't have that much background in politics, and I have never been educated in politics in Bahasa Indonesia. And this is something that is very common among Indonesians who have spent a lot of time abroad, who went to international school, who were mostly educated in English. This is a problem that is very common. It's very common and very normal to not understand all these terminology and political terms in their own language, despite being Indonesian. And I'm one of them. And even when I was still living abroad, there was a phase where I was actually making the conscious effort to educate myself on Indonesian politics. And when you self-educate, you're always going to start with either Google or YouTube. But when I went online to try to look for reliable sources for me to learn from, I couldn't find many. I couldn't find any, actually. A lot of the sources that I looked, that I got were probably news and maybe some articles here and there, some videos here and there that was very scattered and very segmented, and it made it very difficult for me to know where to start. And a lot of the sources would use all of these acronyms and terminology that, of course, got me completely lost. And oftentimes I lack the historical background to understand what is going on. So, to put it very simply, I did not find a lot of sources that were credible as well as easy to understand. But I see that it's been changing a lot the past couple of years. I think there has been a lot more platforms and creators that are popping up that talk about Indonesian politics with friendly, everyday language that makes it easier and accessible for the average person. So one of my favorite platforms that I always follow is What Is Up Indonesia, and this is an Instagram platform that talks about, of course, what is going on in Indonesian politics right now in simple English. So this is a platform that is targeted for internationally raised Indonesians such as myself, and it has helped me so much. And also a lot of these creators that are popping up that are very outspoken about politics, they inspire me a lot. Not to, let's say, get into politics, but to actually rekindle my intention of wanting to learn more about it. And yeah. And the last reason was the bleakness of it all. So whenever I read about Indonesian politics, it's always the same, like corruption, scandal. It's just the same old story. It hasn't really changed for the past decade. And it ties back to the first reason that I talked about. It feels that there really isn't any point for me or for anyone to watch and to read more about it if it's not going to change. And of course, when I was like living abroad for a long time, I really thought to myself, what difference would this make in my life? Because I'm very far away. Knowing about it would probably make me even more depressed. So I really didn't see the point of it at the time, And of course, I moved back 3 years ago, and things started to change a little bit, right? Because of course I'm a lot closer, and I meet people who are more aware of this thing, so it does rub off on me a little bit. And of course, since the election a year ago, a lot of things have changed, and I see that it started to affect me as well. A lot of this noise, a lot of this news, and I think I just realized now that it's just not enough for me to stay apathetic. And of course, with a lot of these public figures that I follow on Instagram, like Skinny Indonesian, Abigail Muria, and Kania Chita, and also recently Salsa Air. A lot of these young people who are very outspoken have really done something to me, especially as someone who never really cared about these things. Seeing the bravery from these young people, not even young, they're like my age, but seeing that their voices are so loud that they managed to create a change throughout society, you can't help but feel inspired, man. And it's also very humbling. It made me realize how little I knew and how little I am doing with my life, So yeah, for the first time, for the first time in years, I really think to myself, maybe it's worth paying attention to this. Maybe it's not too late for me to learn. And with the recent demonstrations and all of these politicians flaunting their wealth, knowing that the entire country is struggling, I think they really reach a level of shamelessness that is just so hard to ignore. Like even for me, who never really cared about politics, this affects me in a way that, man, it just annoys me so much. Like, how could you be so tone deaf, basically, right? And the reason why I start caring so much about it is also because I feel that at this point, it goes beyond the question of politics. I think it's all about basic humanity and just having some empathy. Like people behaving like this. I mean, like, personally, I don't like people who flaunt their wealth excessively in general. I mean, who does, right? And I also dislike people who are gila hormat, who really need to be respected just because you are lucky enough to be born in a certain condition. I think I still have like this high school trauma where when you go to high school, you have to respect your seniors just because you're seniors, even though it's completely undeserving. I have a personal vendetta against that. And I see that a lot of these politicians, of course, they've always been acting this way, but now it's just a lot more evident. And as I said before, it's hard to ignore. And yeah, this is one of the reasons why I've always been quite silent on Instagram when it comes to these things. But at least now, even though I don't really put my opinions out loud, I started reposting a lot of stuff on my stories and on my Instagram reposts as well with a new feature. And even though these are baby steps, I do think that it's a part of my personal growth as well to be a lot more aware of politics and what is going on in my country. And I honestly have this deepest respect for these public figures, creators, influencers who are very outspoken, who came up with this 17+8 demands, and it actually made it to DPR, And I thought, like, man, these people just, I don't know, I think they were like a group of 6 or 10 people who created these demands. And how crazy it must be to know that you have made such an impact in society. Basically you're making a change at a governmental level, and I myself cannot imagine doing something to this degree. So anyway, I just want to say that I'm not even sure if they're watching this, but I just have the utmost respect for these people. So yeah, there you go. Although honestly, I probably still would not be able to contribute much to the conversation in a table where the topic is Indonesian politics, but I think at least I would be able to understand it more, So, and yeah, honestly, this is very difficult for me to make this video because it's very new, and this is something that is really beyond my expertise, and it feels like I'm stepping on a new chapter, being able to be open about this. But anyways, thank you for watching me ramble on about things that I'm not an expert in, and I will see you next week in another video. Until then, take care and bye bye.